Thank you. Let's just take a moment and breathe and let that settle in. I love the traditions of the encircling prayers, and it's one that very much goes with the Celtic tradition and also the native tradition. And most of the earth-based traditions hold that awareness of the divine all around us. Beneath us is earth, above us is sky, and in each one of us. Well, today is one of those interesting days where our attachment to time and space is called to shift a bit with the changing of the time on our outer clocks. And every time it happens, I just find myself laughing at how attached we are to a particular time on the clock. And then twice a year, we can communally go, okay, 1, 2, 3, we're all going to change it. The thing that's so cool about that is it shows how time and also space are outer parameters by which we organize and frame our lives, but that there is a spiritual energy that is underneath all of that, an abiding presence of the divine that is there, whether the clock last night said 10:30 or 11:30. The presence of the divine didn't change. The holy moment that you're standing in as you do that does not change. It's part of that outer realm experience of which we are meant to be a part, or we would not be embodied. And that's one of the things I've always loved about particularly the Celtic Christian tradition, is it embraces that soul journey, but in doing so, it really honors the embodiment of what that journey looks like and feels like, and how we experience it and interpret it. We're currently in the season of Lent, which is the preparation for Easter, for the Holy Week of Easter that precedes, and for Easter Sunday when we celebrate the resurrection. And in the midst of all of this, we actually have the coming of spring that will come next week on the 21st. So spring arrives, Easter arrives. It's not by accident that the Christian tradition overlaid the ancient tradition of celebrating the turning of the seasons. It's all part of the same ancient wisdom and connection that links spirit with manifestation across and through time and across and through space. This month, we're looking at that process, peregrinatio and seeking resurrection. Peregrinatio is simply following the thread. It's allowing your life to unfold before you and to be more consciously present with it and in it than ever before. It's tending your own spiritual path, your spiritual connection, so that you can feel that presence of the divine in not only big ways, but in the little tiny ones that bless you along the path. It helps you navigate through life as you find your place in time and space for the moment, and then open to allow the next one to unfold. I love the whole idea of following the thread, letting life unfold. And in this beautiful traveler's hymn from Imelda Shanklin, one of my favorite pieces comes: when storms sweep the landscape, thy lightning shows where to set my foot, thy thunders speak thrillingly to me. So in the midst of the storm, instead of seeing the lightning as frightening, the lightning is seen as the presence guiding where to take your next step, where to set your foot. And the thunder, rather than being frightening rumblings, is actually the voice of the divine saying, wake up, come out into your life and live. Be present. It's said that each one of us has a golden thread that attaches our soul to our physical form while we are embodied. And that whether we're awake or asleep, whether we're doing astral travel or deep prayer work where we are out of our bodies, that thread keeps us connected to our physical form for as long as we are meant to be here and embodied. There's also classically a great golden thread that weaves through all of the world's spiritual traditions and the writings of people who come from a place of spirit, of prayer, of unconditional love and compassion, and of deeper wisdom and truth. And the thing that I've always loved when I found unity is I believe that we're willing to see and follow that thread through all the different expressions and spiritual traditions there are. How beautiful to realize there's not just one way. As David said, I too have always believed that there are as many ways to God as there are people, and different spiritual traditions touch us in different ways at different points in the unfolding of our soul. And so following the thread is being willing to, rather than have it rigidly planned out, it's a little thin hint of come this way. In the Hebrew scriptures, there's this wonderful passage that says to the presence of God, please be a lamp unto my feet. And back then out there, we didn't have much lighting, so it was quite dark at night. So they would hold a candle or sometimes even put little candles on the front of their shoes so they could see the next step or two, even in the deepest, darkest night. The time that I really got that was when first time I went to Iona in Scotland. And at night, there's virtually no lights. And the first time I was there, it was during the dark of the moon, and you could not literally see where to set your foot. I'm like, oh, wow. Growing up in Texas and Houston, there was always lights of some kind. And to realize how sweet it was to have my little bitty flashlight, which was all I had with me that first trip. And all I could do was put a little circle of light in the next place I was going to step. And it's a reminder that following the thread is trusting that you'll have the light for that. You may not have the light ahead that shows you you're almost to your destination for this moment, your next stop, but it shows you that the presence is with you right here and right now. There's a wonderful movie we all grew up with about following a golden thread. Remember, Follow the Yellow Brick Road with the Wizard of Oz. She arrives and is totally lost, and she gets her ruby red slippers, and then she's told, follow the yellow brick road. And that's what she does, which brings her on a great adventure. And then, of course, as we all know, it takes her to the Emerald City, but the journey doesn't stop there. It continues. And at the end, she returns to the Emerald City and realizes she had with her all the way along everything she needed to get home, which was setting the intention by saying there's no place like home 3 times and clicking together the heels of the ruby red slippers, red being the color of action and passion and love, movement. And so that's a wonderful story about following the thread and all the companions you gain along the way. The hero and heroine's journey is a classic way of looking at your life as well as life in general. Because we do go through all different kinds of times and places. And I know when I first hear following the thread, I think about the realm of space, following the thread physically through the world. But that thread is also the thread of time. It's that place that brought you to that first breath, and then that thread has brought you to this moment and extends forward until you take your last breath and return to spirit. That thread, that everything you've experienced, the people you've shared the journey with, the friends, the challengers, all of them woven with this thread into your life and into the journey of your soul. Past, present, future, time. But time is not rigid. Time flows. We know that simply by changing our clocks. Time flows. And there was a wonderful saying I heard many, many years ago that time is all about perception. If you're holding a newborn baby or holding someone near and dear that you love, you can hold on to them for hours and it feels like a moment. You touch a hot stove and in a moment it feels like hours. The experience and how you interpret it is part of how you perceive time. Christine Wolters-Paintner says there are 8 sacred times for us to be aware of. And I love that. And I thought today is the perfect day for looking at these 8 sacred cycles of time, because they're all held in divine presence. And they go from being profoundly personal to universal and cosmic. As I go through these 8, I'll just tell you a little about each one, just so that you can feel and think about where you are personally in each of these 8. The first is your breath. That connection to the divine that fills your body with life energy that your heart then beats and sends to your physical body. Breath is the most personal of all time, because each breath is a recommitment to being embodied and present and to receiving the gifts and then expressing the gifts that are yours. Number 2 is the rhythms of the day. Morning's rhythm, afternoon's rhythm, evening rhythm. We all have our own. There are morning people and there are night people, and sometimes during the course of your life you switch. What is your rhythm, and how can you best move within that in a way that will not only allow you to do what is yours to do, but will nourish you as well? The third kind takes from the day and expands it out into your week. And we share these, normally the framework of the week, which is one of the things that's kind of come apart with COVID. The normal routines of going to work perhaps from Monday through Friday have changed. You may work, but it's from home. It was different at different parts during this. And so that weekly rhythm, one of the things about retirement is suddenly you have a different weekly rhythm. And so how do you move through the week? And do you remember to have the Sabbath rest time? It's not by accident that from the very beginning, the divine presence included time of rest, Sabbath space. And so remember to gift yourself during the week with not only outer activity and inner activity, but also that gift of rest. And then from that, we move outward to the lunar cycles. The sun moves across the sky, but it stays the same. But the moon is always changing its appearance in the night sky. It stays the same. The moon doesn't disappear into a quarter. It's the reflected light that's in that quarter. So that's all you see, but the moon is there the whole time. But as it moves from the dark of the moon, moving into the full moon, and then back to the dark of the moon, is the waxing and waning of the moon's light. And lunar cycles are something that we have a biological connection with. That's why on the full moon, all of us who've ever done any kind of medical work or work in counseling know that during the full moon, there are more accidents, injuries, deaths, because there is light at night and their things are stirring. So the full moon is a great time to notice what all you've accomplished to that point, and the new moon is the best time to plant new possibilities so that they grow as the moon's light grows. And so that's a monthly cycle. Next, we extend out those lunar cycles out to the seasons, the 4 seasons of the year, and how each one has certain rhythms and calls you into moving within, to sit beside the hearth and to reflect. Or is it the time like now where you open the door and the light of spring and the fresh air calls you back out? It's Rhonda said, birth, more births on the full moon, spring, birth, new life, flowers, plants. So each season that we share is part of a cycle of sacred time. Next are the seasons of a lifetime. In the ancient traditions, there was the triple goddess that was maiden, woman, and crone. But all of us go through those life cycles of childhood and youth and young adulthood and full adulthood. And then we begin the aging process and where we are within that. And so that's a sacred time of your own soul and its life experience. And then we come to the 2 greatest ones of all, ancestral time, which is our connection to all of those who went before, both genetically and energetically, consciousness-wise. We are part of a great golden thread that moves through time and space. And so those ancestral rhythms speak through us. And then finally is cosmic time, time beyond time, time where there are no limits, no boundaries. Breath, a sacred cycle of time that reminds us that God is immanent and breathing with us and through us. Dancing in the sacred cycles of the rhythms of day and night and seasons remind us that God is expressing in, through, and as us in our midst. And in the sacred cycles of ancestral and cosmic time that reminds us that God is also transcendent, beyond what we can perceive with time and space. She encourages us to recognize and to embrace these different concepts of time. And it's a wonderful piece that I find in these times of unraveling, that I can connect with different elements of this, following the thread of time, just as I follow the thread of space. And that time, when I connect with it consciously, begins to reveal when is the right and perfect time for something. That begins to reveal the presence in all that has been, all that is yet to be, and all that is. One of the things that Christine Paintner says in her new book, Sacred Time, Embracing an Intentional Way of Life, has to do with how she feels once she recognizes and orients and navigates her life, not only by space, but by time and the transcendent aspects of both of those. She says, the irony is that while I am keenly aware of the preciousness of my days and even my hours, overall, I don't generally feel more rushed in my life or more compelled to do things and get them done faster. I'm more aware of the preciousness of my days and even my hours, but I don't feel more rushed or compelled to do things faster. That beautiful balance. She says this is what compels her. I am compelled to inhabit my days more fully so that each one feels more like a wide expanse and an open field of possibility rather than a narrow tunnel nearing its end. I'm going to say that one more time. I think it is so profound, and it reminds us of how to shift our view of time and space in following the thread that is ours. I am more compelled to inhabit my days more fully so that each day feels more like a wide expanse and an open field of possibility rather than a narrow tunnel nearing its end. May your vision be wide. May the presence be there in your very breath. And may you follow the thread that shimmers with light, that is ever with you and will ever guide you aright. Blessings this day and always as you follow your thread, and bless us all with your presence.
Thank you.